All right. Well, I want to hear more about you and your
Well,
abbreviated yet racing awareness, and
well,
then how we came together.
it's so interesting. A year ago, I started meditating to Dr. Joe's meditations, and I'm in a group that does these kind of meditations and are focused on clearing, bringing up things, clearing it, and moving things. But when I started meditating, I was in such a really bad kind of point in my life where I was like, okay, if I don't do that, there's nothing else that's gonna save me. So it's like I was doing 2 or 3 hours of meditation every day for a year. Like I've probably had breaks when I was sick or a downtime, here or there. But yeah, so and then
So that started a year ago. Is that right, Katie? Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
a year ago.
Okay.
And then I I had I I had someone on the group meditation that we're on shared something from a guy called Chris Bledsoe. I don't know if you've heard of him before.
Name's
And
familiar.
he was on a podcast that lasted 3 hours, and he told this story about his experience with beyond earth sentience. I've just used David Wallace's term because it's one.
He'll love to hear it. Thank you.
Although there is another person that my friend interviewed recently, and he says people. He calls them people, and he said because they are people, they're us in other forms. And when you call them people, it just it changes so much in your perception. Like I really liked that. Like when he this gentleman was saying, I don't remember his name. Um, but so this was shared, and I watched this experience that this man had around 2010 to 2012. It was around that kind of time period, and it was intense, his experience. And him and his family were interviewed for the History Channel, and they made it evil and wrong. And unfortunately, it was very difficult for his family and his kids. They live in a small town, and they were in high school, and it was very hard for them. But I think they're over that now. But that really opened my eyes to what happens with me is that and I've only realized this recently, is that if someone has a lot of love, it's like I can just feel all the love. Like my heart feels it. I guess, clairsentient. So it's like it just opens up. And when 20 minutes into that video, and it's a three-hour video, I just felt this love. And there's nothing that he was doing that was like obviously loving or anything like this. But it was just the love. I just couldn't believe the amount of love that came from him. And I was just like, I couldn't believe his story. And then I watched it a couple of times. I got his book. I haven't finished his book. It's UFO of God. And he just talks about how loving they are, how much love comes from them. And yeah, it's so interesting, the different, the stories of things, right? But yeah, so then more recently, another friend had sent an inter an interview between Steve Neal and David Wallace. And I watched that, and it broke my heart open to watch David's heart. Like it was amazing. It was beautiful and brilliant. And I just couldn't believe it was an older interview. I don't know, it was 2 or 3 years ago. But then I just wanted more of it. So I started watching his videos, and whatever, they weren't necessarily easy to find, but they were kind of in incremental order. That I don't think I watched all of them, but I watched, they were like 2 or 3 years, and then as it went up to present, and then that's how I met you or found you, was through David. And then I don't know which podcast it was on, yours or his or on YouTube, but I couldn't get enough of the love that was presented there. And it did open my eyes to a whole other world. David did, and then you did a whole other world again. And it's just so yeah, so I've been talking to the night sky. Actually, I started talking to the night sky with Chris Bledsoe, and I noticed on New Year's Eve I was doing that. And after I did and had a real long chat, things in my life were different. It was there. Now it hasn't stayed that way, but for a couple of weeks there was only peace, there was only love, and there was so much of it, and harmony, and the things I asked for. Um, yeah. So like this is me at the very beginning of a journey. Like I don't have any intense experiences, but sometimes I do have experiences I forget about and I go, oh wait, that did happen. So
You haven't had any yet is the
yes.
key word. Because
Yes.
Katie, clearly you vibrate at a level that drew you to other people that have had these experiences.
Yeah.
Um, in my opinion, there's a process that you need to go through. And I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people now over the last 4 years, and no one's journey is the same.
Yeah.
We really can't pinpoint one thing that triggered each one of us the same way because it didn't. Nonetheless, look at how it did trigger us. And you're starting to articulate and pick up on people's vibrations. You're not really talking about the things that they said. You're talking about this kind of
Yeah.
nebulous idea of this love and how you just felt it coming from them. Well, little Miss Empath, here is that part of you that's blossoming out because where we're going, that is the fundamental vibration, not this third dimensional density, crap. And so over the last year, I'm always convinced that people, whenever they get to meditation, to me, it's one of the necessary keys we all had to have to get there, because there's no way you can reach that level of multidimensionality, which is what you're doing, without getting to that quiet, peaceful place first. And that is an assimilation. It's not that when you hear about these things, and even the tools like Dr. Joe gave us, it isn't you started it today and boom, all of a sudden I got it.
The
It's
quick
not
stuff.
like that. And it's not like that with anybody I've had any experiences with, because we're still living in this third dimensional duality. So, we're going to kind of experience new things because that's the nature of our evolution too. We don't we don't think of ourselves that way. We were never told to think of ourselves that way, like we're evolving, whether we're aware of it or not, whether we want to be aware of it or not. It's happening. Every time that, we have another thought, we just laid out our intent for what we're inviting back in. Now, we've been doing that so blindly for so long through our lives. And I did, admittedly. I didn't know that I was creating and manifesting the things in front of me, the things that were coming through my head. And I'm a human being like everybody else. We have the ability to do that. This is what they mean by we're co-creating. We are putting intents out there on the things that we want. And the universe responds in abundance with the frequency that you put out. So here I will start again and remind everyone who may or may not listen to this that now you have proof that your thoughts become things. So be very mindful of the things that you're talking about. What soured me on speaking at like conference events is, there's a section of that there are presentations on secret space programs and abductions. And I'm not taking anything away from those experiences. Who am I to say what the hell happened to somebody else? I know what happened to me. So how can I rule out extraordinary things by other people? However, is it important for us to hear those stories? Yes. But they're examples of, things that have been hidden from us for reasons that are beyond our own. I go back to the idea that our thoughts become things. So if you want to focus on those negative aspects, guess what the universe is going to send back into your field? That same vibration and that content. So when I say I suggest, I'm not here to tell anybody how to live their lives. Just be aware that this is the fundamental on how manifestation works. And once that sinks in, I'm proof over the last few years that when you start to think that way, I haven't had any lousy experiences come my way, cross my path. I haven't even had anybody flip me off on the freaking highway in 4 years. Nothing. There's just this aura that, when we pick up this light that we're receiving, believe me, once it's planted, it's expanding too. We keep taking in more, and that's what people are starting to notice. And once we notice, that clairsentience that you refer to exactly picks up. And then we can begin to communicate with others without using any words. And it was just a natural process. But it's an assimilation. It takes time. After being in this world now for a while, I was here and willing, and I thought one of my responsibilities was to help others just come to terms with what's going on. Not that necessarily I'm going to give you a path to follow, but it seemed important to have a venue where people could have these discussions objectively and without risk, because I was one of them. I was looking for touchstones on somebody that could explain these things to me so that I would be in a position to be able to help others. Well, for years now, that's exactly what I was doing. That was the decision why, when I was invited to talk and share at conferences, I did that. But then you find out what the community is really like. Mm. And I tired of it. So I had made a decision several months ago that I was going to focus my attention on those that were ready, because I'd pretty much come to the conclusion that if you didn't get it, I'm not going to spend any more of my time trying to help you get it. I'm here to help those that do get it so that we can perfect, what's coming along our path. And that was my mindset until last week or the week before. There was some unsettling things in my own evolution that I was coming to terms with. I had to have energetic, multidimensional experiences out in nature so that I could recognize what they were. And that was just to get me ready for the next level. Here's your spoon feeding, Lowell. We're going to give you a little bit at a time. And last year, it was reinforced that there will be greater contact with the surface from both inner Earth and from Dave has brought into my field with beyond Earth sentience. I find myself as a bridge. Now, I've been so focused on everybody else and waiting to hear them catch up and their stories that I kind of feel like I was holding myself in limbo, waiting for everybody to catch up, ignoring the things that were still coming at me, and the new experiences were coming, and the light beings that showed up here on the ranch where I am, and the light orbs that are here crazy, and the few of them that have made their way into the apartment I'm staying into, all benevolent. I was ignoring my own evolution, waiting for everybody else. And so there was something that during these first two incidents where there was other contact from higher dimensional things that were taking place, the first time it happened, I'm used to being able to, and I've assimilated over time when I've been out in nature, my senses are much more acute than they ever were. My vision has spectrums of color that I've never seen before. It seems like, my latitude has widened. My oral spectrum is incredibly, it's just all different. And I was used to seeing that when I was out by myself. Well, it happened here like 3 weeks ago at the beginning of when all this unsettling stuff happened. And so I was in a place where, in my mind, historically, these conditions energetically wouldn't be right for me to have these experiences. There's noise and white noise from third dimensional stuff going on around me, and yet I had them. Now, here was what was troubling is that in the past, I've had these flashes, and then, here we come back to third dimension. I couldn't turn it off. And it freaked it. I'm trying to say every word other than scared because I thought I dealt with my fear. Look, I know what's next. I know where we're going. So when my life is here, I have no regrets. I know what's next. This is the first time something had physically changed in me like that, and I had no control over stopping it. So I finally pulled my shit together, came into the house, and just closed my eyes and sat for a while. And it seemed to, when I opened my eyes, if you want to think of it as a reset, the reset had occurred. The next thing, the same thing happened all over again. And it freaked me out all in the same way, because these aren't just things that are coming into your awareness, they're physical changes. And that's what I wasn't ready for. That there's a reflex that all of us third dimensional humans have, and this was my response to it. So I recognized what I'd done before. I came in, laid down for 15 or 20 minutes, like I would have gone into a TM meditative session, and it seemed to reset. So that was the time that my guides were reminding me, tend to your own flame. And so I decided that I was going to focus on my own evolution, because I wanted to make sense of the things that had happened, and I wasn't giving it my attention. So all the more reason for me to deal with like-minded individuals on the tribe in small groups. We all want that. Anyway, that's enough for me. I kind of set the table, so I want to get back to you because I really want to hear more about you, Katie.
Well, it's interesting about your story, because we all do that, where we want our friends and family to catch up, we want the world to catch up, whatever the story is. But sorry, my mind goes, tending your own flame. This is the inspiration for others. When you're doing your thing and people can see it, they go, what's going on? Pay attention. And then it's like, oh, okay, is that possible for me? What's going on for this guy? What's going on? Just by being you, that's the thing. It's magic. It really is the magic.
I didn't really understood these references to multidimensional magic until I started to have them. And I didn't recognize them for what they were at the beginning. It's only ever when you get down the road and you can look back at what's happened that you can make any sense out of it. And we're talking about content that in our third dimensional minds doesn't make sense.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about me. And
well, then what other questions might you have?
I don't know. Let's talk about Ireland for a minute. So I saw that you were going to come to Ireland. And Glastonbury. First, I saw you were coming to Glastonbury, and well, from a video, and I was like, oh, I wonder, could I get to Glastonbury? Like, I would love to do that. So I'm curious about that in itself. And then with another video, then I saw, oh, you might come to Ireland, because even before you said that, I thought, I wonder, would he come to Ireland? And I thought of my friend Paul, who I've like, he's not a he's an acquaintance that I've just met, and recently even. So it's just kind of interesting that you said that. And then I've only recently, like, I've known about it for many years and kind of met my shook his hand over the years here and there. He runs a magazine called Positive Life. But I was at a dinner and a meditation thing with him recently and had a nice chat with him. So I just messaged him, would you be interested?
You
And
think you just met him. You know, really, if we consider what really went on, that you and he knew each other before. And you
yeah,
made an agreement to come along, cross your paths for a reason that you didn't know until it happens. That's how I kind of come to terms. And it explains to me when all the new tribe members show up and we all just kind of vibrate the same level. We all get it. Now, we didn't know each other before now. We didn't even know where to look for one another. And yet, here we are.
yeah,
And there are more that are showing up all the time.
yeah.
It's indicative of how close we are to Earth's consciousness finishing her evolution to the next section. We're not talking about
You
an
wrote,
ascension that's going to happen down the road. We're in the middle, not even in the middle of it. We're so close to the end of this process that's why things are coming at us so quickly, Katie. We're asked to be able to just, our intuition keeps reminding us of things that are beyond our current capacities to understand what's coming.
yeah,
But we're about to lift into a real multidimensional world. And the truth is, this frequency no longer exists. So we either evolve and adapt to the new place we're adding, or we'll entropy away with everybody else and finish our third dimensional lessons elsewhere.
yeah. I find this fascinating as well, because I'm pretty certain you wrote this in your book, unless I'm thinking of something else, but I think it was your book, the example about your book. It's about the planets and the stars and how they're lining up, and it goes over the numbers. It's and I can't quite remember, but let's say it was like 29,000 years, and the years of how these are lining up, and then you come into these 2,000 years, and then there was 11,000 years of darkness, and that.
You're talking about cosmic cycles.
Yeah,
The one
so
you're probably referring to is the 26,000
yeah,
progression of the equinoxes. Yes.
in your book that I read that, or either it has to be. Anyway, so then, like, I read a book years ago. I used to do japa meditation for 3 years. I was doing japa meditation, and so it's the mantras. And during this time, I read some books, and one of them happened to be by a guru called Om uh, Om Karnat. Sitaram Das Om Karnat is his name. And he wrote a book called, is it The Thousand Suns or something about something like this. And a lot of it is so esoteric. They like, and it really, it's so Hindu in the way to follow it, because it's so exact. But he talks about the same thing. And when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, like he talked about this in the cycles of the sun, and how things line up, and about, like, so they talk about the age of darkness and these kind of things. And there's one other thing he talked about just right there when I was talking about it. Oh yeah, that's another thing he talked about in that book was when he was meditating and he was brought to these it's like a table with light beings and beyond our sentience around. And it's so fascinating because they talk about this again and again and again in NDEs. Like you watch these videos of NDEs, if you've ever seen these on YouTube, they're incredible, some of them. They confirm so much of what you're saying. When you talked about the crystal city you saw in Lemuria, you talked about this crystal city, and I was like, the way you described that, that was exactly like this lady who had this NDE and she thought she was on a different planet. And then in my mind, I'm like, maybe she wasn't on a different planet. She was inside the earth and she just didn't know where the beings had taken her because she couldn't remember from one place to another. She'd go down wormholes and things. And but a lot of people have seen the Crystal City. I'm like going from different things, but it's everything is so fascinating. And back then, when was I doing Joppa? It was 2016, 17, 18. And then I stopped doing it. And then I didn't meditate much for 17, 18, actually it was up to 2019 that I was doing it. And then I kind of took a break from meditating. And then I came back last year. So, gosh, that's a long time without meditating, I have to say.
Well, I have two perspectives to offer you. I think once you learn a meditative technique and you do it for so long, it's just like anything else you've learned. You just gave it all that practice. After a while, it just becomes who you are. It's part of who we are. I understand what you're saying, because like the first 6 months of TM, I had to be very intentional twice a day to put aside 20 minutes to achieve this goal. But I can tell you, after day 3 of training, man, I felt the difference. I felt the difference when I was alone. I felt the difference when I was in a room with 4 other people. This stuff works. And so the more you do it, the more it just becomes part of your practice. And so as my nature every day is, when I wake up immediately, the next 20 minutes are dedicated to setting my meditative state for the day. And I've done that so long now that that's the way that my whole rest of my day unfolds.
I have been doing a meditation every morning. I get up and I meditate. Now I'm not as, like when I first began, it was more regimented, and now I'm a little more lenient with myself about, I've gotten practice in. So this morning, for instance, well, let's say a few mornings ago, I was doing a particular meditation, and he focuses, so they're the guided meditations of Dr. Joe's, and this one's called Bowtech 5, and you go through each of the energy centers, and this one you go through the space in between, and basically, it's the spinal column. You're just going up and out. I got so much energy, I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, oh my, and I was like, to my husband, I was just like, oh my God, please just ignore me. I mean, I was all over the place. And so I took a couple of days off, and I was actually sick. I started throwing up and other things going on in my body. There's something that's still going on in my body. But this morning I did Bowtech 4, which was the main meditation I've done all this time. So it's blessing the energy centers and seeing space and bringing the energy back into the body and that. And but I did add, when I was doing it, the space in between, and my energy was really high. And I don't know if I've just come to a place in my life and my practice where this energy is just going to be there now. I don't know.
Well, yes, you've opened up your vessel to pretty much maximize what it can hold. But think of yourself, because you're a little electromagnetic being like every other sentient life form here. You're just a little capacitor. It sounded from your description that clearly your chakras were all in alignment and firing on all 8 cylinders, each one of them. And so this energy that you were taking in, it was like new light. When you were talking about, well, then I puked a little bit. There's a purge too. When you take in energy, you're going to have to express it in some way. And us human forms, we have a variety of ways we do that. But you're just purging, getting rid of what doesn't serve you anymore, because there's more information the universe is about to backfill into your awareness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a feeling the next few weeks, I know we're going into a retrograde, and the next few weeks is a lot of purging, I think. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like that's what's gonna go on for the next couple of weeks. Um, I do a lot of walking meditation. So from the beginning of a year ago, when I started doing these meditations, I would do the one first thing when I get up in the morning, because that's the time that I have. I have a child, well, she's 8, but she's like full on. So that's like, I need time for myself, 4 or 5, between 3 and 5, wake up, meditate. Um, then yeah, so then I have a dog. So during the day, I would take my dog for a walk. I put in the ear pods and I do my walking meditation. Um, it's really interesting. It's really interesting to think back about my experiences. I've done a lot of walking meditations. I mean, there's one day I did a few hours of walking meditation. You just feel fried, fried. But um, but there's a connection in nature that I'm very lucky where I live. I live in one of the most beautiful places. Like I've got the beach to one side and I've got the mountains on the other side. Now, mountains are not big mountains in Ireland, you know, but I go to a few places where I have these amazing walks and beautiful wildlife. Like I'm very, very lucky to be able to connect to nature in that way. Like not everybody has that.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, like definitely I feel the meditations have brought me a lot of gratitude where before, like a year ago, I couldn't understand gratitude. I was like beating my head against the walls, you know, around me in my life. And where I found myself, I was just felt so but I was frustrated with everything. But but yeah, there's so much gratitude. Like just that's an interesting thing as well, because before I couldn't understand gratitude. And it always felt like such a silly thing. Or even though like I was always into learning these new things my whole life, I've been interested in learning all this stuff. And I think since I was small, I could see spirits, or things would happen to me. Like I don't really remember all of it, but I'd have premonition kind of things. I could see things and then they'd happen. And sometimes, like especially when I was young, I would think, oh, if I saw it and then it happened, I would feel like, oh, I'm on the right path because I saw this before. So I'd always kind of go, oh, okay, I know I'm on the right path. I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of wandering now, and I going back to to the gratitude that I never fully got or understood. But yeah, it's interesting when your body as well is kind of going up the levels as you go along and clearing things out, which is always fun. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not. But we don't know that until we have to face it. And then it wasn't in when we have to face the type of thing, these aren't conscious choices we made, because it's not a diagnosis we can make on ourselves for whatever this sensation I'm going through. I don't know enough about it to fix it. So over the time I've heard stories about others, it seems like more and more of them have been predisposed to, they had experiences when they were younger. They just didn't have any way to put it into context because it wasn't common in their family units for the most part. It wasn't common within their friendship. And, if they ever did begin to speak about it, most times they were ridiculed. There was one woman in particular that I think it was last year. She came onto the podcast twice. And the first time she just kind of sat back and listened. We always encourage people, if you got questions, pipe in. We're here to answer the questions. I think intentionally she just wanted to get comfortable with the group before she was going to share what she was going to share. So the following week she returned and she opened up about something that happened when she was younger in the early 70s. And when she tried to share with her family, she was ridiculed. She just tucked it away.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't that it stopped, Katie. It continued to happen. But who, in her mind, who did she get to talk to? So, 30 or 40 years later, she finally finds a pod of people that talk like this in a place where she felt comfortable to open up. And really, until you start to do that, you don't get to open yourself up entirely until you kind of like crack the egg. You know what I mean?
That's so interesting. Yeah, this guy my friend interviewed, I can't remember his name, but he writes these books about people's stories and how important it is for people to speak their stories, because just like what you're saying, it don't have a place. And so many people, he's encouraging people to speak, because even if you just ask your family members, and there's someone that has these experiences that they've just never told anyone, because there wasn't a place. They'd be made fun of, ridiculed, the whole thing, but now we're in a different world, and
Yeah. You can't ignore the day that I had some photographs taken of me with light beings in my field was the day that somebody suggested that disclosure was to a level now where the efforts to ridicule it, um, tamp it down, the things that whatever government agencies were trying to, perpetuate their own narratives, their own agendas. It seems like that time is gone. That maybe those people that were in those areas of power have reached, they're older. They've been at this for a while. And there's a whole new flood of different energies that are curious about changes around us that we can't really pinpoint. There's something in the energetic field here that is getting more intense. I'm sure that I'm speaking for you too, that now since you've recognized this aspect of yourself that's waking up, it's come on at an accelerated pace. Holy crap, it comes so fast that it just takes a few days for us to assimilate what we're going through. But what I've come to conclude is that those assimilations we've had along the way, those are now things we're acclimating ourselves to. We weren't around this higher energy before. And what our guides are telling us is get used to it. This is the way things are right now. So to me, the veil between the dimensions is thinning even more, which explains why I had the experiences I had out here 3 weeks ago, because it's just time. I keep telling people, if you want to have contact, the table's been set. Now it's just a matter of following some protocols that Dave was lovely enough to share with us. And the inner earth people have their own way to communicate with us if we're paying attention. But now is definitely the time.
yeah. I'm very curious about the Andaras. Like I just look at them, like some of them, like I just like really just pop out. Like I get it just by looking at them on the internet. Like they're they're um there are a couple of these champagne ones that are just like And I'm sure like those are the ones I would want. But I think as well the root beer ones are really important to
Those are great for your root chakras. And
yeah,
I had one for a long time, and it was meant to go on to somebody else.
yeah.
But I'm not surprised when people are drawn to the champagne colored ones because those are more crown associated. Oh yeah, those things will connect you. Um, that Andara's is a whole nother learning lesson for me. And it wasn't intentional. This was before I knew what they were. And I've been around crystals and I love stones. I'm a Capricorn, I'm an earth kid. I've been around those things all my life and I have a passion for them. I'd never heard of Andaras until they crossed my path. And the way that they did, I had a friend, and Shannon is a really gifted Reiki healer. She had the ability to hold a crystal in her hand and describe exactly its energy. Well, I envied that. I didn't know how to do that, but I certainly wanted to. To answer when I got that ability back, if you wish to be able to sense the sentient energy in just a crystal, you're not going to be limited to just that. That was when you found out that you can connect to all sentient life and you need to understand how to protect yourself before you open yourself up to that. Because I didn't. I just thought, oh, great, I'm open to anything. And that's when you understand that other things that are
Yeah.
undesirable can find their way into your field. But these are lessons that you had to learn along the way, too, so that you could protect your field. And, how do you learn that when you had no experience with it before? Who was going to tell you?
I learned that early on. Should say I used to like when I was a teenager, I was seeing spirits and things, and sometimes I talked to them, whatever. But then I got really spooked, like some things coming in and that. So I just switched it all off. I was like, okay, it's just I can't.
I've
Um,
heard so many people say that they have this ability to connect to something else, and when it freaked them out the first time, they shut it down.
yeah, but over the years that well, it wasn't the first time, but it was as a teenager, and it was just yeah, didn't know what to do. But yeah, over the years, I've taught myself to different lots of different times, lots of different ways to ground and protect the energy field and that and then sometimes completely forget again, and then go back to oh I haven't grounded or I haven't protected my energy field here. Yeah.
Well, I began to we talked about Andaras, and as is case, I can find another rabbit hole to go down. But anyway, I wanted to get her a gift. And so she was passionate about the color green. And so I thought I was going to find a crystal that she could put in her Reiki healing room. And so the very first thing I came across on eBay was called an Emerald Shift Andara Crystal. And if you read all of the qualities that this had, holy crap, this thing's really something. And so I bought it. Didn't know anything about it. I had no perception of what the value of it should have been, what I should have paid for it. It would only be later when it finally arrived. I opened it before Shannon got to see it, and it was beautiful. It looks like some really pretty green glass, but when I held it, other than it was beautiful, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
That didn't mean anything to me. I didn't know anything about them. But when Shannon opened it, and I got kind of the same impression from her that she really didn't sense anything. I didn't. I just dismissed it because neither one of us had had any experience with it before. Maybe it just happens over time, or it just didn't. Whatever the reason was, I let it go until a few days later. I had read something on the internet about how Andara crystals were really slag glass.
So,
And all of a sudden, I thought, did I get taken? Well, what I will learn over the next 2 years, because it took me 2 years to complete all of this knowledge I had, was to do all the due diligence I could about finding it. That's how I found Mickey. That's how I learned about Lady Nellie. I knew about some other people that had communications with, but I learned more about Andaras than most people know. And in the end, I will learn that it wasn't Andaras that I was going there to learn about. I was going there to learn about Ethereum, which is the
Yeah,
prima mater material they're formed from.
yeah,
Now, Andara crystals carry all the same qualities as Ethereum carries in solid form. Um, but Ethereum, if you understand how I understand it, the gods were interested in Ethereum long ago. They ingested it. There are, well, in order for us to understand better what Ethereum powder is, Ethereum carries what scientists could look into it, into raw Ethereum, and determine what it had. There were 70 um, micro metallic elements in it, metallic elements, uh, um, and then a lot of other things that they just didn't know. I concluded that Andaras were more like a sentient best friend that you just acquired. And when you connected with it, this exchange of my Akashic records and the Akashic records it held was incredible. It was there to help us unlock our DNA so that we could access the things that we already have known. Um, there's an end to this thought, and I'll remember what it was in just a second. Anyway, um, I had spent time at Mickey's compound, and that's where I learned about them. I had seen lots of stuff he brought from Nellie's place. And the first time he ever offered some Ethereum to me, it was white. Well, if you transmute white Ethereum, it transmutes the metal qualities of it, turns it into gold. And that's where people began to understand Ethereum, those that know anything about it. But Ethereum isn't just white, it's how they found it and recognized it on Nellie's property. And there were a whole series of steps that led up to realizing what this powder was. When you dug down to look where you found it, there was a vein of it through her property, but the bottom was black, and then there was more reddish, and then it was almost tan colored, and then white was kind of on the surface. And each one of those serves a different purpose in helping a human body clear. I had the most respect for black, and the way that I see it benefiting us most is black is a regenerator, um, refresher. I mean, it to me, it was like, here's my chalkboard, and black Ethereum is going to clean it, erase it, so that I'm starting from a clean palette. Then red allegedly assists in opening your heart, which I had no need for. Tan is meant to help perfect your body and come to terms with its DNA changes. And then white was your connection to source and things higher. Um, I After I started ingesting it, and I don't want to refer to where I found it. I don't want to put this on record. Let's just say that it found its way to me because apparently it was supposed to, but I was given all four colors out of nowhere. How did this cross my path? And I can tell you, did I need it to open my DNA? No. Did it accelerate it? Hell yes, it did. My awakening like took a screech. And the only frame of reference I had were a few other people that I'd known that had access to it, that had ingested it. And a few of the individuals, you could tell they'd been doing it for a while. And when they opened up their mouths to speak about anything, they could go into such profound rabbit holes on this particular topic that you just sensed was true. But where in the world you ever heard this or wherever you came up with was way beyond me. And then I began to have my own little doubts or bouts of these profound things that would come into my head. In fact, I started to write them down because, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I want to go back and read that later. Over time, I had a journal full of them, and I could tell that this came from somewhere else. That's what this purpose is. But I reinforce, if anybody is drawn to Andaras, if that triggers you in some way, you're destined to have one. And we really don't buy these things. We're stewards of them. Think about it. These crystals have been here a lot longer than we have. And we're only here for a short time to take advantage of their energy. But just like I was explaining, when we exchange our energy with the one that we're holding and what it contains, remember that she's connected to all of her brothers and sisters that have been gridded throughout the planet. Wow. They're powerful. Anyway, when I finally got to meet Mickey, that's when I learned about the green one I bought. Yeah, it wasn't legit.
You knew when you bought it. You knew once you had it there.
Well, then I was like a dog with a bone. Oh, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And I'm going to do that so others don't make the same mistake. I still hear to this day, there are people that have seen them and they go, oh, that's just slag glass. Well, yeah, I'm not going to correct them on social media. You're where you are and you're stuck there.
Yeah.
If you want to hear somebody that's had some experiences, I'll be able to share with you what this stuff really is, but it's not that. The problem is it's been complicated by people who used to buy some of them through Mickey. So they knew that they had authentic material. They're scattered over the planet. And when they stopped buying it from Mickey, they were buying it from other sources because it was cheaper and promoting it as such. And they knew better. That was the disappointing part. That's the disappointing part for me because I know the difference between an Andara and a non-Andara, and I can feel the difference in energy. But how many people get a chance to do that so that they can find out for themselves? So again, I tend to my own flame. I know what I know. And my friends who resonate will have these conversations. But I'm not trying to convince anybody else of anything. They've got to find their own truths themselves. And if they're looking for some people that might be able to give them some, usually those instances show up synergetically. And so somebody will cross your path to validate the things that you're questioning if you're looking and you're open to it. But there's a lot of people around that are just kind of stuck where they are. And I know I can't change them.
Yeah, that's okay too. Yeah. What else do I want to ask you? Something. It'll come back.
Well, while you're trying to remember what it was, you had asked about Ireland and Glastonbury, and I'll give you the year before last, there was somebody from Ireland who had reached out, and I might have mentioned a little bit about her in our correspondence.
What's her name?
It's not a need. I'll think of it and I'll send it along to you because she's in Ireland. Anyway, she was curious about Lemuria and Inner Earth. And so when we communicated, we had a Zoom conference just like this so she could ask questions. And that's when she revealed, would you ever be curious or would you ever be willing to come to Ireland? Because I'm the executive director of an association of like-minded individuals. And I don't know what the name of it was, but consciousness was definitely in the label. And she said, there's 10,000 of us here in Ireland. And I'm also the executive director of Eastern Europe, where there are 30,000 members. So that's kind of how it began. And I thought, yeah, it'd be cool to go to Ireland. But last year it didn't play out. Well, now something's happened. Well, I know what happened. The episode that I was on with Ruben Langdon on his series on Gaia was featured at the beginning of last month. I don't know why. Apparently, they just picked one. And the flood of people that I've heard from outside of the United States has gone up by one or two people almost every day.
Yeah.
And so I can see this picking up. And the first one was a guy named Jody Dean out of the UK. And Jody was the guy who had mentioned, other people need to hear you here. There's a festival here in Glastonbury at the end of September. And I'm going to reach out to the coordinator. I think if you are willing, we would love to hear you come and present. 2 days later, somebody he knew in Romania had also heard his story, reached out to me. And so now I have an invitation to go to Romania in the middle of August. And if I'm going to head in that direction, then I'm going to figure out the best time that's suitable to take advantage of visiting Ireland while I'm there too.
Yeah. Paul has Bruce Lipton is going to be here. He's hosting him for Positive Nights for his magazine that he does, and he does these things. And I know it's in September the 28th and 29th. Do you know the dates of Glastonbury?
I think that actually begins like September 29th.
Okay. So I'll just see what dates he would. So would you be thinking you might come before or after to Ireland? Before or after? You don't know. So if you're open to whatever, I'm just saying to
I
Paul,
am right now.
early September-ish, or it could be October, is the kind of early October or early mid-September. So I'll kind of give those kind of ranges to Paul and see what he says. He said he's definitely interested.
Yeah, it's the weather being conducive is really the only thing in my mind. But in September and October, it's still pretty nice weather. So let's hear what he has in mind, and I can be more flexible. Honest, the beginning of the year, I made my way here to the Sedona area, and I've been here since November. It was my intention to be here in May and start to execute some of these retreats here because there's some other energetic things that I found here that are triggering other people and activating them. I was under the impression that I was going back to Shasta the 1st of June, and I'll be there till the end of September at least. And throughout this time, I'm going to start to execute these retreats the same way, try and schedule them two a month. Well, then along comes Jody, and along comes El Tryon. And so I've modified the schedule moving forward so that I won't be in Shasta as much as I thought I was going to be, because I am interested in going to these other places. There's other reasons other than just communicating with others. These are some golden Taya allotments, these predisposed areas that are already energetically right for the shift. I'm curious about those areas and I want to find them out for myself. And they're on the lists.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I'm curious about this. Do you know the name of the spiritual conference in Glastonbury?
Let me see. I do. You know what? Let me do some research on it because I can go through Joey's correspondence because he mentioned it. And you don't want to confuse it with there's a music festival there
I know.
a few works early. It is not that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I won't be able to confuse it with yeah. I still don't know what I was going to ask you. I thought of it a couple of times, but there are so many things that I just, oh yeah, I'm interested in this, so I'm interested in this, and um, I don't know. It's something personal, and
Oh, well, if it comes around to you here, this isn't the last time we're ever going to do this, Katie. So moving forward, get your little pad of paper and jot down these things that you've got questions about. And the next time we come around, we'll just go through them. Because again, you're probably not the end, you're not the only person who has these questions.
yeah.
And the tribe loves to hear when somebody else shows up to see how they kind of fit into the fabric of the rest of us.
It's really annoying. We can't remember.
Well, I'm got nowhere to go. We're fine.
Sit here home until I find out. Aw. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think of what else I'm interested in while trying to remember this stuff. Um,
Well, then we'll pause here and we'll pick up again. It always takes me, at least me, a few days to assimilate what the exchange was. And that's why I like to go back and listen to them because, frankly, when I first started doing podcasts and somebody asked me, well, how'd it go? And I went, I don't listen to them. They said, well, you should. There's information in there for you. And from that point, I started to listen. And then I heard this wisdom coming from places that, in my mind wasn't in my akash. And yet I was supposed to hear it. And I was supposed to hear it with someone. And the more it happened, the more I appreciated it. Yeah, I don't know where that was going either.
oh, gosh, that was just like it's so funny.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead. I want you to finish the thought if you have one. If not, then we'll just park it here and
yeah,
we'll come back and follow up. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. It was lovely. It was really, really lovely to meet you and to
Same here.
yeah, and to have lovely a bit of time with you. I don't know. I can ask you something that I wasn't planning on asking, but it's kind of come into my awareness now. I'm curious because, say, my husband's not into anything spiritual in that way. He might be open to doing something, but he'd be very cynical. So this is like where and I explained this to him yesterday about how my vibration is going like this, and he keeps bringing me down here to get in an argument about something we don't need to argue about. then and then he'll do something where he's like in this hamster wheel, and you're just like, what's going on? So I had to tell him, look, you need to work on yourself a bit. We need to like match a bit because I can't keep coming down this way. This is so I think it's just like dealing with when you're opening yourself. Like obviously I've been doing the meditation and my walks, meditational walks and things, and I'm raising my vibration, and then I'm learning these other things that are also opening me up, and then the people I'm around aren't necessarily like how do you deal with that and your own personal experience with that?
You have to really convince yourself that you just need to focus on your own flame
That's yeah,
because it's easy to see when you're around these people and where their vibration is. And it doesn't make them bad people. It's just where they happen to be on their journey. But now it's wonderful that you can see it objectively as an observer and see what effect it has on your vibration and your frequency. It's cute when I hear people tell me about situations where they are sure that they saw something and then they freaked out a little bit and then they didn't see that. Well, here, let me explain what just happened. Your vibration naturally is at such a level that you have the ability to experience these things a little bit beyond your capacity to understand them. But as soon as you saw that, you freaked out, you dropped your
Yeah.
vibration, and you're
Yeah.
no longer in the space to see it or experience it.
Yeah. That's how
Yeah.
me at the nighttime once recently, that I'm sure I saw this. It just looked like a small black shadow of a being, like a shadow moving, but not like a shadow, like a being like that was moving. And, and like that's what happened. I was kind of freaked out. And then as a child, I would have said, like, as a child, if I saw things in my room, I would have said, like, been like, oh, you're scared or whatever. And then you're like, oh, it's this, that, or the other. But, and even as an adult, you might do that. But what I actually said to myself is, that was something. It wasn't nothing. It was something. And I did see what I saw, but I don't, that's what it
You know what?
was.
You just explained the whole 3D process of when something extraordinary happens. You saw a little bit and you freaked.
Yeah.
And then you said, it's this, that, or something. Yes, that's our human mind trying to figure out a way to categorize this and put it in a box so that we can understand for ourselves what this is. But we're talking about things that we don't have the capacity to articulate yet.
Yeah.
We can interact with one another energetically and sense that, oh, yeah, we feel the same thing. But if you ask me to put it into words, even
Yeah.
as advanced on my journey as I think I am, I fail to be able to command the words that really explain what the hell is happening to all of us.
Yeah, it's so interesting. That's interesting because words were never necessary before, and the words won't come because you won't be able to put it into words to express, because we don't have the words to express.
Words in our this third dimensional thing have just served to just get us in deeper trouble. But if you notice the things that I've heard this a lot recently, that people are being drawn to music, which we all are, but in a lot of cases, it's music that doesn't have any lyrics.
Yeah.
Symbols are meaningful for us, colors and different light spectrums. This is the way we're going to communicate in the future. Because when you and I want to communicate, we do that without exchanging words, that we didn't need that kind of universal translator. And so when we go back to the more pure ways of communicating with one another, people are reporting now that that's beginning to happen. Yes, I see that. It's part of this whole idea where once we see these extraordinary things that are happening to us as dimensional experiences, I started to make this correlation earlier and I never got to finish my thought, but that's the one thing that no one can stop you from doing. They can try and stop you from talking about it or recording it and putting it out there in the public, but no one can stop you from having multidimensional experiences. I had wondered for a while when my information got out there, whether there would be any government agencies that will come along to, pick my brain. And that didn't happen.
Mm.
But what did happen is I did start to hear from some people in the intelligence community. But it wasn't about questionable contact or the things that I was saying. They're human beings too. And they want to know the truth. Something's stirring inside of them too. and they're not getting the answers from their superiors. So they've been reaching out to people like Dave and I, who they know have had some kind of experiences and they find it to be truthful. They want some more information. So you won't see these in any YouTube broadcasts. And I'm not that hard to find, but I was starting to get these unsolicited messages like through WhatsApp. And that's where they found me. Now, I was a little leery at first of what you want to share with them, but I got a feeling that these individuals want to be treated as such. And even they were starting to have their own extraordinary experiences. And who do they get to talk to about it? It's coming fast.
It's important. It's important. Like I can see that it's important, especially
Yes.
culture of fear that's been placed. You know, that's yeah, the message of love is the most important thing that I've learned. And because years ago I wouldn't watch a lot of horror things like that because it gets in my head and I can't I'd be sleeping with the lights on for 3 days. Um, but I watched something called, it's something like From the Fifth Dimension or something. Did you ever see that? It's based on a true, and it's docu drama. So it's like part of it is the actual footage and then part of it's not. And it's this lady who lived in Alaska and with her family, and she was researching this beyond or sentient stuff when she was having experiences that were not positive. And she ended up in a wheelchair because of some of the experiences and things that had happened, and moved to South Carolina. Her daughter was missing and just gone. So like there are these kind of situations and things, you know, like I saw that. I was frightened out of my head, you know, like, oh my God, what are these beings? And, you know, just terrified of the whole thing. So I just stayed away from it. Like, I don't know anything about the communities and conferences and things. Like, I wouldn't know about that. And then when I saw the Chris Bledsoe interview that I saw, I just saw all the love, and I saw him talking about them with such love and what they did to him and what they did for him so that he could heal. Now I know what I wanted to ask you, so that you
Good.
could heal people. I like to keep on
Do it
talking.
quickly.
I know. I'm seriously healing light. Okay. I'm switching the topics now because this is
Good.
so one time I had a session with someone who's clairaudient, and basically he hears things and he gets you end up speaking it out because he attracts that, and then he's just able to clear the crap out, whatever is going on. So it's my first session with him, whatever. I had a session with him, and I have a teacher in India called Neem Curly Baba. You may have heard of him before. And I'm just very drawn to him. I was very close to him when I was doing japa and that. I have no idea why, but you know, I have a few others as well, but he's the one I have in my home and whatever, and I might talk to and that. But he saw him from the beginning. He saw him, like he just asked, "Who's your teacher?" And like I didn't tell him I have like a teacher or anything. But then we talked about him a little bit, small bit, you know, but he would kind of say, well, this is the message from him, blah, blah, whatever. And then uh he we in the session, and he said directly after that session he just saw like a column of light, and this light kind of going in every direction, and he saw that from Neem Karoli Baba he was given this kind of vision that I would be healing people, like doing one-on-one sessions with people with light. So I think I just have this curiosity around what that is exactly, because right now I have no idea. But the more I get to know about this opening of what exists, that I'm just curious, and I'm just like a little more curious. And Yeah, I ask for it from the night sky and for answers on what's going on. And then also, I'm just curious about the Andaras because I'm so drawn to them. And I know that people use them for healing. So I'm just curious, is that like a connection?
Yes. Oh, yes. I was given this. Let's see if we
That's the
can do her
seafoam.
justice. Yeah,
That's the seafoam.
that's
Yeah.
Epiphany. And she was a wand that was given to me by a healer who had her before. So when it was suggested that she could heal, I didn't know what that meant. My third dimensional little head, I carry it in my pocket most days. Back then I was carrying it every day. And so um, there was a day when I was back in California, and most days then there was a bike trail that I would go out on every day. It was about 6.5 miles. Not a lot of elevation changes, but at my age and stage, when you're done with the ride, you still have some fatigue. Your legs are tired, your butt's sore. Um, I had gone down to the garage where my bike was. And my son and his pals all have a bunch of workout equipment there. So there's a leg press bench right in the middle. And as I go by it, I trip and I clip it on my thigh. Well, as a
Ah,
hockey player, I know what getting hit in the thigh with a puck is like. That's what this felt like. It
no.
hurt. And so, you know, I didn't think I was going to hop on a bike and go ride. And so I remembered I had Epiphany in my pocket. So I pulled her out and I thought, okay, you say you're a healer. I put it on the spot where the pain was. I'd stretch my leg out on that bench and put Epiphany on it for maybe a minute and a half. And then maybe for another minute and a half, I just moved her back and forth over that same spot. And when those 3 minutes or so was over, I got up and rode that bike like nothing had happened.
Wow. Isn't
Yes.
that, that's,
Yes.
yeah, that's incredible. That's, yeah, that's,
Yeah. There's another story about Epiphany with her former owner. We were in Shasta for a conference, the last one I was going to appear at. And Kathy, who's one of Mickey's friends, was along. So we were all staying in this Airbnb together. A few days earlier, Kumu had given me some uh, um, material, a little shard of a crystal and some dust from that she had claimed came from inner earth earlier in the week when she arrived. And so when she gave it to me, I thought, this is fascinating. It looked like a little piece of obsidian with some green and blue Andara flecks in it. It was awesome. So I put it in my pocket. And when I got back to the house, I was showing it to everybody else that was there because Mickey, Kathy, and the others hadn't seen it. And Kathy is kind of like the energetic cat of all of us. She's a QHHT, professional and understands how to connect to higher things. But she's empathic to degrees beyond myself, and I'm extremely empathic. Anyway, while she was playing with it and looking at it, I had put it back in my pocket in the plastic that was in next to Epiphany. The next morning when we got up, Kathy was like ill, like puking ill, couldn't get out of bed. And it wasn't until noon that she got up and started to go around. When I reached into my pocket later to pull Epiphany out, it looked like she had pepper inside of her. She was
wow.
peppered. What finally occurred to me is that there was some kind of negative energy
Yeah,
that this little shard carried. And so the two entities that had the ability to draw that out both did their jobs. Kathy
yeah.
did, and that's what made her ill, and so did Epiphany. So when I took her to the headwaters in Shasta and I let her sit in there for about 5 minutes, cleared it.
Oh,
I'd
that
never
is,
seen such things.
I love it. I love it. I just
Yes.
hear, I just hear the type of healing, the type of light, and the type of clearing that's going to happen, not just through Andaras, but through like in the future, in
Yes.
the present future. Like,
Well, you
that's
touched on the right word, light. We're getting enhanced photon light coming at us, and humans on this planet have been living on, just to give you some sense of relativity, we call it half electronic light. It's the same light that affects the Earth. However, when we pass through this procession of the equinoxes, and in 2012, when we moved into this enhanced band for the next 2,000 years, that's exactly where this light is coming from. And it's affecting and changing all sentient life from our central sun out. That's why our consciousness is rising. Earth's consciousness is rising. She's in a cosmic cycle that has nothing to do with how the sentient critters all kumbaya together on her. She's in a cycle all her own. We're just trying to match her vibration. So when she reaches it, and I know it's imminent, that we'll be there at the same vibration that she's at already. But this has been coming at us and changing ourselves at a cellular rate. We could go off and start to talk about what form we assume next, because we're done with these little carbon avatars. You're moving in crystalline form, and that from 40, you get to pick that and occupy it for as long as you want because it doesn't wear out like this. Those things have been planted in us and they're upgrading us now. There are two phases of this that's taking place. The first downloads that those of us that are aware that's taking place received were to be able to enhance our abilities to accept this higher level of light, because our initial DNA wasn't designed for that. So first we needed the upgrade so that this light that was coming could now transform us the rest of the way. And those of us that get it, we can feel those things. And that's the other reason why we feel what we do. And this light is that thing that illuminates our little aura a little bit more and just gets people to pay attention to us when we don't even have to utter a word. It's a lot to comprehend, but
I think,
makes
yeah,
sense.
it's being who we really are, not the body that we think we are. Like we're taught, we're grown up to be this thing we everybody thinks you're your job, you're your body, you're your hobbies, but it's not true. And actually knowing yourself, and people have been talking this for a while now. You can read books for hundreds of years that people have known. It's very interesting. Yeah.
They've been trying to warn us for a while. It wasn't that people didn't have these visions of where we were going. The difference now is that we're so close to that time when it's actually going to happen. To me, it's significant because this is cosmically historic. Earth
Yeah.
hasn't been in this plane before. Mm-mm. And she's moving into it permanently. So those of us that understand reincarnations and our choices to be star seeds that come and participate in this Earth experiment, we came knowing we were going to be part of it. I know this shift was going to happen during my lifetime, this in this incarnation, and I'm no spring chicken. It just tells me all the more that the clock is ticking. Yes. So, any other questions before we conclude for today?
I don't think so. I'm curious about mountains. Like when I learned about Mount Shasta, which was a few weeks ago, like I'm just so curious. And it makes me very curious for some of the things like portals around the world and things that say I would believe in secretly, or I believe in my fairy mind, in this kind of way, like there's this magic inside of me that thinks that that's true, but it's not true, that kind of thing. Um, but I'm so curious now about, like, I go to a place called Glendalough, and it's this spiritual kind of place, and it's nature, it's mountains, but it used to be home to a monastery for like 1,000 years ago, whatever. So, but I there's beautiful spiritual energy there, and I've always been drawn there. I came to Ireland 20 years ago, and I was always drawn there. Always loved going there. I love going hiking there. I'm always over there a couple times a week. It's 30 minutes away from where I live. But like now, like I look at the mountain a little different. Like I think differently. Like I think what could be there inside the mountain, in the water. I had a dream last week. It was really weird. I don't know if it was a dream or a meditation. I can't quite remember, but there was this mermaid in it. It was a merman, but it wasn't like you would imagine one to be. He was so real. Like he was thick in himself. He wasn't like the sexy idea of what a mermaid is or a merman would be, but there was something very unusual, and I feel like I'd seen this before. Like I'm sure I've seen this before, but it was incredibly strange because his face, there was a face, but then there was like an inverted cage. It's like there was metal kind of coming off of his face. And he looked at me, or I looked. I don't know. I don't know if I was actually in the water in the place, but I saw him, and I don't, like, in the water, and I don't even know why. Like it was really strange. Um, but things like that, and that exist, they're around, but because we're at a different frequency, that we don't see them normally. But it doesn't mean they're not there.
They are there. You're right. We've limited our capacity to experience things because our vibration only goes so high. They don't exist in that vibration. But if we can lift it, that means that we can experience all the things that match this frequency. So you just started our list of what we should talk about next.
Yeah.
Mountains. Um, to me, you're describing elemental energies that you experience in Ireland, and I will tell you as to why. Does the term druid resonate with you at all?
Yeah, when I was younger, I say younger, when I was 20, like I really wanted to meet druids. I love trees. Like I've always loved trees. Like I'm from Georgia and in Atlanta, and there's so many trees everywhere, and I love nature, and I'm so drawn to that. Like, yeah.
Well, I'll help bring some clarity to why you're where you are and what energies are there that you're responding to. Sometimes we just need somebody else who kind of understands where you are to hold the mirror up and say, these are the things that you're missing. But you sense them.
Yeah.
The tribe comes along to help us validate those things. And that's why we cross each other's paths. Not that I'm going to point you in a direction, say, here's what you're going to find. No. My job is whatever resources I have are at your disposal. So we can get you to the next level of your own mastery, which isn't mine, it's yours. And whatever gift it is that you possess, no one else has, the rest of the tribe is here to help remove whatever the obstacles are because we want you to get wherever you're going. None of us have that gift. When the time comes, we're going to count on you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So get your notepad out, jot
Yeah.
these things down, and let's let this assimilate a little bit. And when you're ready, after you've viewed this, reach out and we'll do this again.
Great. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Lovely.
My
Thanks.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Look, I get just as much out of these as whoever's on the other side of the Zoom screen. So thank you.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Yeah. Great.
All right.
Talk soon. Bye bye
Well,
bye.
thank you.